Hello everybody, and thank you for tuning into this new video. I just got back from the theater watching the new Terminator Dark Fate movie. So I decided I wanted to do a review on it because I grew up with the Terminator movies. The first two were some of my favorite movies growing up. So I wanted to get this chance to share my take on the next installment of the franchise. Alright, so there might be some minor spoilers in here. I'll try and keep it as spoiler free as possible. So hopefully I don't give away too much of the movie. But there might be some small spoilers while I'm going through it. Okay, so... And actually I think most of the stuff I'm going to talk about was probably already spoiled in previews. So... Also, I'm really late getting to this movie, so if you were going to see it, you probably would have saw it by now anyways. First I guess I'll just give my opinion of this movie, and I thought it was a good movie. I don't think it was groundbreaking. Was it as good as T2, the best of the series? No. No, it wasn't. And I think it's never, I don't think there's going to be a Terminator movie that comes out anytime soon that will surpass T2, because I think it just kind of was one of those movies that just hit the right marks at the right time. And I'm not sure something down the line is going to recreate that. But that being said, I think this movie has some obstacles it's going up against in terms of how it's being reviewed and how people are probably going to receive it, because it's trying to do two things. It's trying to create a connection to the originals that older fans will like, plus trying to give newer viewers enough of what that feeling was in a new form and new ideas to hook them in as well, as long with the older viewers, because the older viewers don't want to see the same thing. And oftentimes that can be hard to juggle. You see it in sequels all the time where they just don't quite hit it. And this movie doesn't really stand out. Well, I don't want to say it doesn't stand out, because it stands out in the fact that it's actually a good Terminator movie. But in terms of, like, will it be a movie that, you know, people talk about like T2 or even the original Terminator? Probably not. For one, it just is kind of carrying on the story, and it does some nice things, and it's fun, and the action's good. I love the action in this, and the way they did it and the way it looks, even the CGI parts, you can tell they're CGI, but it flows well enough that I don't think it's too distracting. And I think this is a movie that definitely learned its lessons from the mistakes of the older sequels past T2. So, you know, Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, Terminator Salvation, Terminator Genesis. You can tell that they've kind of learned the mistakes they made in those movies, and you get a better movie in this one because of it. Because whereas I think part of the issue with some of the movies is that for some of them, they try to be too much like the originals, and they try to make too much of a callback to the originals. So, like, Terminator 3 Rise of the Machine just is too much like T2, and, you know, it doesn't give you anything new. And then there's the other end of the spectrum, which is like Terminator Salvation, which kind of goes in the other direction. So this one's a nice middle ground between the two. You get the right amount of callbacks, and it's given the proper respect, but it doesn't overpower any of the new stuff, and the new stuff holds its own. So I enjoyed this movie. Like I said, the action was good, the effects were good, the acting was good. the new hero that they introduced, the lady from the previews, whose name is Grace. And if you looked at the previews, you can see she's enhanced. She does a terrific job in this movie. Um, Linda Hamilton, the original Sarah Connor, does an amazing job in this movie. She definitely, I think, adds a weight to the movie because she was the original character. She was the original protagonist of the series. And I think having her back in adds some weight to it. I think she adds a lot of emotional connection to the movie. Even if you haven't seen the original Terminator movies, I think she does such a good job that you find yourself feeling for this character a lot. And I think that's wonderful. But in terms of like where it's sitting on Rotten Tomatoes now, it has an audience score of like 80% or 86%, something like that. And I think it's deserved. It's not the greatest movie ever. Will some people probably gripe about it? Yes, because it's not T2 levels. But overall, I mean, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I never found myself thinking it was going on too long. I think they used the original characters in just the right way. That, like I said, they didn't overpower the new stuff, but it was still a good kind of callback to the originals. Let's see other things that I thought that stood out to me. The new bad guy Terminator. You saw it in the previews. Kind of looked like a blend of the original two Terminators. So like Arnold's exoskeleton with the liquid metal Terminator kind of fused together into one, and it works really well. And you can tell what they were kind of trying to go for it by saying it's the best of both worlds rolled into one. And that Terminator, the new Terminator, does really good in terms of being a bad guy. I mean, Terminators are emotionless, but this one kind of goes back and forth in a good way of being an emotionless killing machine versus trying to blend in and make itself seem emotional. So it does a good job, kind of like what Robert Patterson, the original liquid metal Terminator, did. I'm trying to think if other things stood out to me. It's definitely bigger than T2 in terms of the action and how grand it is in terms of like all the things they're doing. But I think T2 was a lot tighter story, and I think that helped it. For those of you, kind of wondering where I would put this in the list of the Terminator franchise, I would probably put it at, a slightly distant second to the second Terminator. I know a lot of people will hold the first one in high regard just because it started the franchise. But after recently going back and watching that movie, the original Terminator doesn't actually hold up that well. It's still scary. It's still a good horror movie. It was just kind of what it was, but you can kind of tell it was more low budget than most even B horror movies were, and the effects are a little outdated. And if you ignore the kind of interesting premise it was built off, it's just kind of a standard unstoppable monster trying to kill the maiden hero character. I think what really elevated it was the world it built around it, which T2 did to perfection. So, yeah, I mean, I still think Terminator's a fun movie. Like, the original Terminator is a good movie, and it does what it's supposed to do. But, like, T2 was clearly the standout movie. I think this is kind of a slightly distant second, the Terminator Dark Fate movie. Yeah, I'd probably give it a 7.5 out of 10 in terms of quality. Like I said, the action was really good. I mean, some of it was kind of cartoony, a little bit here or there, but they did it in such a, I feel, almost grounded way that it kind of offset it a little bit, because you still felt like you had machines doing what machines do in this fighting, and you still had the humans doing what you feel they would be doing in this fighting. Um, let's see, the action was good, the characters were good. I think I would say overall, yeah, 7.5 out of 10 seems like the right place for it. Like I said, I never felt like I wanted to leave the theater any quicker than what the movie was running. I felt that it did pretty well with what it was supposed to do. There was a couple of kind of lull points, a little bit there, but I never felt that I was taken out of it by everything that was going on. But yeah, it did its job, I think. I think it's worth going and seeing in theaters. I know I don't think it's doing very well at the box office now, but that could just be because Terminator as a franchise is maybe just kind of outlived the generation that where it needed to be, where this type of sequel needed to be. This should have probably been the third movie in the franchise. I think it would have taken it in a lot better way had this been done much earlier. But yeah, I just think that I can understand why it may not be doing so well at the box office, because there may not be as much emotional investment. The people who would go see this movie off of nostalgia alone maybe not be going to see it because other movies are out and they have families now. So yeah, but I'm glad I got to see this movie. I think it did what it was supposed to. Enjoyed it. May watch it again at some point. I don't think it's one that you need to view a second time. And it's not one that's going to hold multiple viewings the same way as like T2 did, because I used to watch that movie all the time. I could still watch that movie, and it's just a fun movie to watch. But yeah, this one's kind of in the same vein where I could watch it again, but I probably won't. I'll probably just move on to the next thing. But I think if this is where the Terminator franchise kind of ends, it would be a good note to end on. If it carries on, I think this would be a good jumping point into the future. A chance to kind of retire the characters that kind of become the central faces of the franchise. So like the Sarah Connor character, the Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator character. These would be good points, I think, to kind of close the chapter on those characters. Maybe like use them a little bit here or there, but not like what they were doing in the other sequels past T2, where especially Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator just kind of you know that they were bringing him back in those other sequels because he was the face of the franchise, but they never really did anything new with the character, and in some ways that just kind of made him dead weight. So it's just a face, and you could have had anybody do that and it still have had the same impact. Here, in this movie, I think they do a good job of kind of showing that they're kind of the past now. Those characters are kind of the past, and that if they do move on, if this underperforms at the box office, they may just close the coffin on the Terminator franchise as movies. But yeah, I think this would be a good jumping point into more. I recommend going and seeing it. I know this is a couple of weeks already since it's been out, but it is what it is. And yeah, I mean, if you've seen the movie, please give me any comments you have about the movie, what you thought about it. I would love to hear that. And please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And you guys have a great evening. And take care.